to another episode here on the Nature's Premier Week in Review. I am your host, Brooke Nichols, and I am so blessed to be back here with you all this week. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode. Now, before we begin with today's episode, I just wanted to say my setup's a little bit different. Usually I have my computer here and I'm looking up articles and I'm talking with them, about them with you, and I'm doing it live, but unfortunately I do not have that this week. Hopefully by next week I have it, so I will be looking at my cell phone pretty often, so I do apologize about that, but we will change and play around with the layout, moving forward for future episodes. Now, for those of you who are new to our show, our Week in Review show, what we talk about here are about different conservation issues. We talk about sustainability. We talk about different issues pertaining to animal rights, human rights, poaching, pollution, deforestation. There's so many things that we talk about on the show, and truthfully, my main objective with hosting this weekly show is to really share these stories with you all, because we are all inundated with social media just by so many different things, right? So many different topics, whether it be politics, whether it be local news. There's just a lot going on, but there's also a lot going on overseas in different countries where we don't hear much about. You might see a story scrolling your news feed, but a lot of times we'll get upset for the moment, or we'll want to take action and be like, okay, I gotta share this, I gotta let more people know. But we just get inundated with stories every single day. So what I want to do with this show is really just to bring it back, focus back on these issues so more people can learn this information. So it is really important, and it's definitely appreciated if you share this episode with your friends and family so more people can understand what's going on, across the borders, even in our backyard. There's just so many different things happening conservation-wise, sustainability-wise, pollution, endangered species. I mean, there's so many different things happening, and I really hope to bring awareness with this show. So thank you all so much for listening to my little spiel, and on to today's show. So I posted something last Thursday. I posted an article, and it's an unfortunate article. It's about rangers that were involved in a poaching ring, or believed to be involved in poaching, and they were actually arrested for rhino poaching. Now, the reason why this is kind of a sensitive article is because I had spoken about poaching several times on the Nature's Premier podcast. We have shows weekly on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, all those platforms, and we talk about a lot of things very similar to what we do here in the Week in Review. But I had made a comment about rangers being involved in poaching rings. Not all of them. There's many very good rangers, but unfortunately, it's always that few that spoil the whole bunch, right? And I had gotten a lot of emails, and people were very, very upset. They were very upset. They said that I was speaking ill of rangers. So I just got a lot of bad feedback from this one episode where we talk about an introduction to poaching. And, I'm glad that people are responding to the show, but unfortunately people are really misinformed. Unfortunately, there are rangers that are involved in poaching rings. That's like anything though, right? We always hear about different officials being involved in different things, and it's always upsetting, but you can't take away from the fact that that's a real situation that happens, and it happens many, many different areas of the world, even illegal logging. People don't want to talk about illegal logging with deforestation, the fact that, they will cut down, Amazon rainforest wood and ship it to America. There's so many things that happen. And that's another reason why I love the show and why I love hosting the show, is because it really does bring your awareness up. But it's not to be combative with anybody. It's really just to share some of the things that happen that unfortunately are very unpleasant. Now, 2 Kruger Park field rangers were arrested for rhino poaching, granted $10,000 bail each. So the poachers appeared in the Sugaxi Magistrates Court yesterday, and this was actually back in January. So this is on the 17th that they had appeared in court. So it was 2 rangers, Lucky, he was 30 years old, and a 32-year-old named Zima. They were arrested on January 15th at the Crocodile Bridge section in the southeastern parts of the park, closest to Mozambican border. Authorities had reason to believe they were involved in the latest spate of rhino poaching incidents at the park. So unfortunately, that is something again that happens. And, these gentlemen were, they were granted $10,000 bail. I'm not sure what the currency is for that. So there is a Sands Park internal investigation that is happening. These rangers were told not to speak with other rangers. They are currently suspended. So they are investigating this. But I did want to share this because this is something that happens all the time. And don't kill the messenger, you know what I mean? This is something that happens a lot. And it's very, very important that we have boundaries set up, you know, because what happens is these rhino poachers, and not even just the rhino poachers, you have the elephant poachers, you have the tiger, lion poachers. I mean, you have so many different types of poachers. They'll kill anything, you know, really, if it's not protected, if the animals, you know, just like we saw Cecil the Lion, you know, they'll go through to so many lengths to get what they want, and with breaking any type of law they can, bribing, and a lot of times it works, unfortunately. So it's very important that we have checks and balances in place. And a lot of times, you know, these rangers they're not arrested. There's no repercussions, right? So I'm very happy that this is happening, like penalized for their behaviors, or at least, you know, being arrested for it. Slowly but surely, we are coming to grips with people within our ranks who are sabotaging our efforts in this campaign. And this is the campaign of, you know, stopping poaching. We still have confidence in those who are committed and loyal and would like to encourage them to continue with the excellent work. We will not be deterred in ensuing or ensuring that we are successful in continuing the fight against the scourge of wildlife crime in this national park. He assured the public that the SNA parks would do everything in its power to bring the poachers to justice. So I'm not exactly sure. Maybe they were tipped off. There are a lot of good people that are looking out for these, you know, these animals, and they are looking at the rangers. There are people that know that this is what happens. You know, they take bribes. There's so many different things. Poaching is such a dirty, dirty, dirty industry, and this is something that you know, really does have to be on the forefront, especially in these national parks. You know, you hear about it all the time. You hear about these people getting away with, you know, like in Yellowstone National Park, they want to bring back hunting wolves. I mean, there's so many things that are happening to our wildlife, and it's very important that we stay on top of it, you know, and that the officials that are being shady and lackadaisical and taking bribes, that they are penalized for it and they are held accountable. I want to circle back and talk about an article that was posted by Fox59.com, and it was about a zebra that dies in Carroll County in the cold. So we all know that zebras are from Africa, they're used to warm weather, and somehow this zebra had died in the cold. So I'm going to read some of this article to you guys, and you come to your own conclusions. You all know that I'm not a fan of zoos, so I'm not going to put my opinion out there, but I am just going to read you the facts of what happened, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think. So Sheriff Toby Lizandi told WLFI one of the two zebras at the Pittsburgh property died as a result of the cold. Lizandi said investigators checked the scene and the property met standards for outside animals, making shelter, food, and water available. Investigators said it appeared the zebra got stuck in the fence and couldn't get free. A woman who posted a photo of the zebra said the shelter was a carport with opened ends. Her photo of the zebras showed them out in the cold without a blanket. The property also has kangaroos, but Linzambi told WLFI that the kangaroos were inside a shelter. The incident remains under investigation. Now, my biggest thing, I have to say this, I said I wasn't going to be biased, but I just want to give you my commentary. The biggest thing with, you know, being under investigation is I can't imagine it would be that long of an investigation, okay? Like when, let's say a zoo or an animal enclosure or a park, whatever it is, you know, they take in these animals, they have to vet the animal, right? They have to like see what the best environment would be for this animal. Now, clearly taking a zebra that is used to the African heat all year round and putting them in a snowstorm, snowy situation, very cold climate, it's just not a good mix, you know? When they say they have kangaroos from Australia, it's very upsetting, it's very concerning when you see these organizations, these companies that don't vet these animals properly, you know? Like, you would think if, okay, they're gonna take a zebra in, you know, they would have to mimic that climate that the zebras are used to. To have them outside, to have them in something like a carport with the open ends, with them hitting the breeze, like, what do you expect's gonna happen, you know? Like, they're not used to being in the cold. They're just not meant for it. They're not cut out for it, you know? They're warm climate animals. And that's the biggest thing that I have with a lot of these zoos, with a lot of these organizations that make money off of the enslavement of animals. I mean, because that's really what it is. It's animals that are, you know, they're pretty much prisoners, you know? They're in the imprisonment of animals. You know, and that's the biggest thing that's the biggest issue that I have with this. Well, you would think like they would just try to mimic the enclosure, so at least make it comfortable for the animal, at least make it more healthy for the animal, so they have a higher chance of surviving or at least living to a decent age. And it's really unfortunate when you hear these situations. And they show a picture of Yeah, the zebra's laying in the cold, like stuck in a fence. Like, well, what's going on? What are the checks and balances that happen here? You know, and that's a big problem that I have. You know, we talked about on the show a couple weeks back, there was a woman who was accused of abusing something like 60 dogs. You know, she's literally on like, she got R&R'd from court, and a week later, she's starting a new organization to take in animals. Like, why are we not having more checks and balances for these things? It's a very real thing. Animal cruelty is a very real thing. We have different laws in different states, and some states are really trying to, you know, pick up their animal cruelty laws, but that is something that's animal cruelty. You know, they're trying to make it sound like, oh, it's a freak thing. But the problem is that the animal was out in the cold, and it's an animal from Africa. So we really do need to focus and reconsider, you know, who we patron, because that's a big thing. That's a really big thing. Now, if this animal was in something that was, like I just mentioned twice, you know, if it was in an enclosure that was warm, that was more like the African climate, damn, paint a wall, do something, you know, then you can be like, okay, well, what happened? But still, it's still not their climate, so obviously you're gonna have issues. But that's something that really bothered me when I read that, and it was just kind of like they're playing dumb. Like, oh, I don't know what could have happened. Oh, well, what could have happened? You take an animal from Africa and you put him in, you know, in the cold, in the snow. It's probably never seen snow before. It's just a shame, and it's very upsetting. So that's something that we really do need to like consider when we're patroning these companies. An article posted by The Independent on February 10th, 2019 talks about conservatives break pledge to ban lion hunt trophies from being imported into the UK. So the numbers of lions are falling and the numbers of captive lions are going up. And apparently this is not on anyone's agenda. So I'm going to read some of this article to you all today and let us know in the comments below what you think. This is a very, very upsetting article, and it just shows you that like, we need to put these people's feet to the fire, truthfully, because these animals are on the endangered species list. You know, lions have been on, I feel like the lions have been on the endangered species list for so long, for like many decades. And it's upsetting because you would think that certain animals would have, okay, we know this animal's endangered. You know, you think that would be like when they're talking about animal welfare, to, you know, really try to change their numbers. That would be high on their list in that category, but it's not. It really is not, and it's very upsetting. The government has broken a pledge to ban imports of lion hunting trophies, The Independent has discovered. In 2015, the Environment Minister, Rory Stewart, said the UK would halt imports of parts of the big cats by 2017 unless the hunting industry cleaned up its act. The following year, his successor, Liz Truss, repeated the promise in a letter, saying, unless we see improvements in the way hunting takes place, judged against strict criteria, we will ban lion trophy imports within the next 2 years. Experts say there have been no improvements to African lion hunting, and wild populations have tumbled from about 20,000 then to about 15,000 now. More than 150 MPs have signed a preliminary motion by Zach Goldsmith calling for a ban on hunting trophy imports. The government says it keeps the rules under review. Chris McQueens of the charity Lion Aid said he was appalled by the broken promise. It's awful. The number of lions is falling, and numbers of canned, bred in captivity lions in the cruel shooting industry is going up. Yet, it's never on anyone's agenda. It's heartbreaking, she said. An average of 6 lion bodies are imported each year but Lion Aid says a ban would send a message worldwide. A spokeswoman from Humane Society International said the situation in South Africa, which exports more lion trophies than any other country, is exactly the same situation as it was in 2016. The U.S. lists lions as an endangered species, which means imports of body parts from captive lions are effectively banned. In 2015, Lion Aid twice met with Mr. Stewart, and Ms. McQueens said, during the second meeting, Mr. Stewart told us we had won. Mr. Stewart promised us in November 2015, unless there is a significant improvement in the performance of the hunting industry in those countries, this government will move to ban lion trophies. Experts say hunting male lions devastates entire prides. Teresa Teletsky, HSI's International Wildlife Vice President, said last September the magnificent greater Kruger lion, Sky, who was head of his pride and in his prime, was lured out of the national park into a private reserve where he was shot by an American hunter. As a result, several of his cubs were killed, and some of the pride's lionesses were badly beaten up by new males sought to take over. The lion dynamics in this region were severely compromised. Now, I will just say, this article goes on to talk about rallies and talk about different things that are happening, and people are very upset by the fact that they had broken their promise. I wanted to talk about Cecil the Lion. We have a show that I've been working on this episode for quite a while. What happened with Cecil the Lion was very sad, and it goes to show you time and time again that these laws, they're so loosey-goosey. His tour guides, excuse me, to have them be able to lure Cecil out of his area, out of his enclosure, and then kill him. How is that even ethical? How is it on any plane that legal? How is that ethical? And where are the checks and balances again to penalize people like that? Because the last thing I know, that dentist, he got some hot fire from the public, and he had some bad publicity for a while, but he's still practicing now. He's doing his thing. He doesn't care. He has that trophy. That's his. You got these American people coming in, dropping some crazy cash, and they're killing these animals. You have can hunting, which is a whole other beast, and there's just not enough being done to save Africa. That's really where this comes down to. So I'm gonna go back to this article. At a rally on 13th of April this year, thousands of wildlife supporters will march to Downing Street to call for tougher protections and for all endangered animals to be exempted from trophy hunting. Mr. Goldsmith said he was awaiting an update from environmental officials. Asked about the criticisms, the Department for Environment referred to the statement by Minister Teresa Coffey, who said imports were already strictly controlled. A permit will only be issued if no detrimental impacts on the survival of the endangered species is demonstrated, and the item has been obtained a legal and sustainable hunting operation. We are looking carefully at this issue and plan to hold a roundtable discussion with organizations from all sides of the debate to gain a better understanding of the issues, as well as consider any future scientific advice. Honestly, leave them alone. Stop the hunting ban. I know it's easier said than done, but we can do better. We can do better. As a species, as a human species, for our fellow Earthlings, we can certainly do better. We need to protect these animals. We need to protect them. We can do better. As Earthlings, we can certainly do better. And it's something that we really need to give them pressure. Great for rallies. Let's protest. There's things that we have to do. You see it all the time. When you want change, you have to become the change. And it sounds corny, but we have to seriously put their feet to the fire. We will not accept this. This is our wildlife. Just because I'm in New York doesn't mean that, Africa doesn't affect my life. Some people, they don't want to care about it unless it's in their inner circle. They're like, I don't care about it. But I know that those animals have a reason for being here. And there's a reason why we're here. And there's a reason why many other animals are here, and the organisms, and where we're here, exactly where we are right now. And it's nobody else's place to, just cut these animals' heads off, hang them on a wall. How narcissistic is that, really? When you think about it, how narcissistic is that? We have to do better. We simply have to do better. And we have to save Africa. We need Africa. I want to circle back about a story that I heard that I had posted, and it was something that really broke my heart. And it's about the Birdman of East Village. He was assaulted and his cockatoo was killed. This is an article posted on February 8th, 2019, and it was posted by the San Diego Union Tribune. The bruises on his face soon may heal, but the broken heart of Victor Vasquez, the Birdman of East Village, may take a while longer. Sydney, the day before he died, I told him, "You're the reason why I wake up in the morning," Vasquez said the week of his 31-year-old medium sulfur-crested cockatoo from Papua, New Guinea, one of his 3 feathered companions. He was just an amazing soul. The bird was killed during an attack on Vasquez, which he said occurred Wednesday in front of the San Diego Central Library. Vasquez said he was punched, kicked, and knocked to the ground by 2 unknown assailants. While Vasquez was being beaten, 2 of his birds got loose from their cages. One of them, Sydney, flew into the path of a passing trolley and was killed instantly. Vasquez, 54, had become known as the Birdman of East Village for his daily walks around downtown and Balboa Park with a tower of 3 bird cages strapped to his back. He and his 3-tiered backpacks and squawking birds had become fun and quirky sight in the year and a half he's lived downtown, and he was featured in a San Diego Reader article last March. On Wednesday morning, he said he slipped on his birdcage backpack and headed out of his small apartment on Market Street to the library to return a rented DVD. He dropped off the DVD in a slot without entering the library and said a security guard told him to move along. Vasquez said he was leaving when a young man sitting on a nearby wall said something like, "Yeah, get out of here and your dirty old clothes." Words were exchanged, but Vasquez said he walked away. When he saw the young man heading toward him, he called 911. The San Diego Police Department reported receiving the call at 9:47 a.m. Vasquez said the man struck him, knocked him down, and was joined by a female companion who also hit and kicked him. He said both assailants appeared young, around 18 years old. The cages popped open. Ginger, a Goffin's cockatoo from Australia, flew into a nearby tree. Between blows, Vasquez said he could see Sydney flying toward the trolley. He remembers a woman saying Sydney had been run over. Vasquez managed to get to his feet and walk to the tracks. He scooped up Sydney's mangled body. "I can't get the image out of my mind," he said through tears. Vasquez said police arrived, but he felt that they did not believe his story until they saw security camera footage. The Union Tribune was unable to confirm Friday whether police had obtained or reviewed any surveillance video, and the newspaper was not able to locate the video independently. He said he hopes witnesses will come forward to help identify the assailants. He was able to retrieve Ginger and also his Cocoa Berry, a red Lord green Amazon parrot about 20 years old. "They are my life," he said about his birds, which had helped him deal with some tough times. Vasquez was homeless off and on for about 10 years and said he is HIV positive and has PTSD from injuries sustained in an encounter with police during a demonstration in San Francisco in 1989. Sydney was his favorite of the three birds, and even through his grief, Vasquez is able to smile at the bird's memory. "He gave me so much," he said. "That's what I have to hold on to. He is so intelligent. He loved to be held and praised. Sydney was my best friend." The case has been assigned to a San Diego police detective and is under investigation, but no other information about any possible suspects was available Friday. Anyone with information about the incident can call Crime Stoppers at 619-235-8477 and refer to case number 19004063. I wanted to share that because I cannot tell you how much I cried. Like, I know it sounds corny, but I sobbed because, you know, it's like we have so many people have pets, right? Like, you have pets. I have a pet. I have several, but my oldest her name's Annie, and she is an old lady. She's an old Yorkie, and she has a lot of medical problems, you know, and it's like we make bonds with these animals, and you know, it just was very sad. You know, it's very sad to me because if you see the pictures, he's so sad, and it makes me think of, you know, my own relationship with my animals and just how mean people are. Like, people can be so friggin' mean, you know, and I understand these assailants were young, but it's like, at the end of the day, like, we're so mean to each other. When you think about it, like how we treat each other, it's really deplorable. That's the real deplorability, or if that's even a word. Because I feel like everybody has a story. Everybody's walking around with their own story. This gentleman has his own story. These kids probably had their own story, you know? These birds had their own story. The one was from Australia, you know? Everyone has their own story. And I feel like if we all knew that about each other, or if we all were sympathetic that everybody's carrying around their own stress and baggage and, you know, hopes and dreams, I feel like people would be better to each other. But we have to remember that, like, you have to be empathetic to people, and that's how, you know, the good energy just gets out there, right? Like, more good energy. Maybe we wouldn't cut each other off as much. Maybe there wouldn't be as many car accidents. Maybe there just wouldn't be as much violence and devastation, negativity in the world if we just remembered that we're all just regular human beings, you know? Like, we all have our issues, trials and tribulations, and we all have our own story. I'm just curious how different our world would be if we were kind to each other. Now, I wanted to share an article with you all. It's from 2018, back in October, and it really did fit the theme for tonight. And it's about in 45 years, we have killed 60% of the Earth's wildlife. Now, this was an article that was posted by CondonastTraveler.com. A damning report by WWF puts the worsening condition of planet Earth into perspective. Humans have been around for more than 2 million years. But in the last 44 years, we have achieved what we haven't in all this while, a mass annihilation of our fellow Earthlings. Between 1970 and 2014, Earth lost nearly 60% decline of its mammals, birds, fish, reptiles, and amphibians, almost all due to human activity. The rate at which Earth is losing its biodiversity is comparable only to the mass extinctions. This and other findings have been published by the World Wildlife Fund in its Living Planet report in 2018. A stinging reminder that the declining health of the planet is true and evident, and it's a bigger problem than ever. Published by WWF every 2 years, the report documents the state of the planet in terms of biodiversity, ecosystems, the demand on natural resources, and its impact on nature and wildlife. This year, its results are even more devastating than ever. 20% of the Amazon has disappeared in just 50 years. On a global scale, the area of minimally disturbed forest declined by 92 million hectares between 2000 and 2013. Of all species that have gone extinct since 1500 AD, 75% were harmed by overexploitation of agriculture. Ocean acidification may be occurring at a rate not seen in at least 300 million years. The Earth is estimated to have lost 50% of its shallow water corals in the past 30 years. These are like huge findings. It's absolutely shocking, truthfully. Humans are responsible for releasing 100 billion tons of carbon into the Earth system every 10 years. In April 2018, levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere reached an average of 410 parts per million across the entire month, the highest level in at least 800,000 years. Only 25% of land on Earth is free of impacts of human activities. This is projected to decline to just 10% by 2050. The report states that as our reliance on natural resources continues to grow, it's clear that nature is not just a nice thing to have. It's imperative for our survival. A global deal for nature and people. World Wildlife Fund, along with conservation and science colleagues around the world, are calling for a new global deal between nature and people, involving decision makers at every level to make the right political, financial, and consumer choices. World Wildlife Fund is collaborating with a consortium of almost 40 universities and organizations to launch a research initiative that will explore the critical work of putting together the best ways to save the planet. The report says that the biggest challenge, the biggest opportunity, lies in changing our approach to development and remember that people save the planet. The report says that the biggest challenge, the biggest opportunity, lies in changing our approach to development and remember that people protecting nature also protects people. And remember that protecting nature also helps protect people. In the words of Marco Lambertini, Director General of World Wildlife Fund International, today we still have a choice. We can be the founders of a global movement that changed our relationship with the planet, or we can be the generation that had its chance and failed to act. The choice is ours. Now, I think that is very powerful words. Those are very, very powerful words, and it's something that we really should heed. It's a warning that we really should heed. We either make moves or we wish we had, right? That's really the biggest thing. And I wanted to share that. It's not to be doom and gloom, it's just to show you that, like, you know, some people say, oh, well, these, let's say sea lions are on the up and up, their numbers are on the up and up, but we don't talk about, we just did before, but the lions, their numbers are on the down, and the only reason why their numbers would increase at all is because people are breeding them to just shoot them and kill them. There needs to be checks and balances in nature, there needs to be checks and balances with how we interact with nature, we interact with each other. I wanted to share with that Birdman, it wasn't just to talk about the fact that this, old bird was killed, which is really unfortunate. It's talk about how we treat each other, how we treat the environment. It always comes back to us tenfold. And it's something that we really do need to take into consideration when we put our energy out into the world. Like, what kind of change do you want to have? What kind of generation do you want to have? What kind of future do you want for your children? And the way you treat animals, the way we treat each other, that is very telling to how we are going to live as a society as we get older. So with that said, I want to thank you so much for tuning in to another episode here on the Nature's Premier Week in Review. Thank you so much. While we play around with different settings, play around with different lighting, play around with different setups, I really appreciate you all so much, and thank you again so much for tuning in. So I'll check you back again on the next video, and I hope you have a wonderful week ahead.